The glass trembled in Anders Cade's grip as he studied the amber liquid, ignoring the chaos of Helios Outpost's most notorious bar. Situated on the fringes of civilized space, the outpost had become a melting pot of tensions between the Aetheran Empire and the Corvalian Collective, two powers locked in a cold war that threatened to ignite at any moment. He preferred it this way, anonymous in the dim light, back against the wall, watching the crowd with practiced caution. The bar's clientele consisted of roughnecks, smugglers, and mercenaries, all just trying to survive the harsh realities of border existence. Anders fit right in, though few knew his true history, a disgraced military pilot, whose spectacular failure had cost lives and branded him an outcast. The neural implant at the base of his skull tingled, a phantom reminder of connections severed years ago when the military stripped him of his commission. Now, it was little more than decorative tech, a relic of a former life. "You look like a man who's running from something," came a smooth voice that cut through the ambient noise. Anders didn't bother looking up. "Not running. Just not interested in whatever you're selling. What I'm offering is redemption, Mr. Cade." That got his attention. Anders raised his eyes to see a tall, slender figure draped in formal attire that screamed official business. The man's skin held the faint blue luminescence characteristic of high-ranking Aetherans, and his posture suggested authority beyond the rough circumstances of this outpost. "High Counselor Thalon." The man introduced himself with a slight inclination of his head. "May I join you?" Anders gestured to the empty chair with his glass. "When an Aetheran High Counselor asks, is it really a question?" Thalon smiled thinly as he took the seat. "Your reputation precedes you, Mr. Cade, the human pilot who could navigate the impossible." "That reputation died in the Carillon disaster," Anders replied flatly. "Perhaps. Or perhaps it was merely suspended." Thalon placed a small, holographic projector on the table. With a flick of his elongated fingers, it burst to life, displaying a swirling mass of electrical discharges and gravitational anomalies. "Do you recognize this?" Anders couldn't suppress his reaction. "The Vortex Nebula, unnavigable, a death trap." "Indeed. And yet something of great value is trapped within it." Thalon's eyes gleamed. "The Astral Dawn, a royal vessel carrying two very important passengers, the twin princesses of the Aetheran Empire." Anders laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. "And you want me to fly in and save them? No thanks. I've had my fill of suicide missions. We've lost 6 of our best pilots attempting rescue operations," Thalon continued as if Anders hadn't spoken. "Our navigation systems cannot compensate for the nebula's electromagnetic fluctuations. But a human pilot one with your unique neural interface training might succeed, where our technology has failed. Why would I risk my neck for Aetheran royalty?" Thalon's fingers danced over the projector, and the image changed to display a staggering amount of credits. "Full restoration of your pilot's license, citizenship within the Empire if you desire it, and this sum which would allow you to live comfortably for several lifetimes." Anders studied the offer, trying to mask the hunger he felt. Freedom, legitimacy, a chance to fly again without looking over his shoulder. But the mission was nearly impossible. "What aren't you telling me?" Anders asked, years of border negotiations having taught him to spot the gaps in any deal. Thalon's expression remained impassive. "The mission must be completed within 14 standard days. After that, the nebula's cycle will shift, making extraction impossible for another 3 years." "That's not it." Anders leaned forward. "What else?" A flicker of something respect, perhaps, passed over Thalon's features. "The Blood Covenant." Anders froze. The Blood Covenant was ancient Aetheran tradition, rarely invoked, but binding under their law. "If you succeed in this rescue," Thalon said carefully, "you will not only receive payment and restoration of status, but you will be bound by the Blood Covenant to marry one of the twin princesses." The silence between them stretched as Anders processed this information. "That's archaic," he finally said, "even for Aetherans." The royal family has activated an ancient debt owed to them by humans. The Covenant cannot be refused if you accept this mission." Anders stood abruptly. "Find another pilot." "There is no other with your qualifications," Thalan replied calmly. "And consider this: as consort to one of the princesses, you would hold considerable power. Your voice would represent humanity in the highest echelons of our society, a society that has long regarded your species as inferior." The implication was clear. This wasn't just about Anders anymore. It was about his entire species and their standing in the galactic community. "I need time to think," Anders said. "You have until morning," Thalan responded, rising from his seat. "The Nomad, your ship, has already been located and is being prepped with the necessary modifications for the journey." Anders narrowed his eyes. "You were that sure I'd say yes?" Thalan gave him a knowing look. "I was sure you would at least consider redemption, Mr. Cade. Few can resist its call." After Thalan departed, Anders remained at the table, staring into his now empty glass. A familiar voice broke his reverie. "I know that look," said Jace, sliding into the chair Thalan had vacated. A fellow human, and one of the few people Anders might consider a friend. "That's the look of a man who's just been offered a chance to either die gloriously or live with impossible complications." "Something like that," Anders admitted. "The Ethetheran official, what did he want?" Anders explained the situation, watching Jace's expression shift from curiosity to disbelief. "The Vortex Nebula. That's insane, Anders, and this Blood Covenant business sounds like trading one prison for another." "Maybe," Anders conceded, "or maybe it's an opportunity. For what, to get yourself killed, or to become some royal alien's pet human?" Anders shook his head. "To make a difference, to change how they see us." Jace studied him for a long moment. "You're actually considering this?" "I haven't really flown in years, Jace. The Nomad's been gathering dust, and I've been here wasting away. Even if I die in that nebula, at least I'll die doing what I was born to do." "And if you succeed, marriage to an alien princess?" Anders gave a wry smile. "One problem at a time." Dawn came too quickly. Anders found himself in a secure hangar on the outskirts of the outpost, staring up at his ship, the Nomad. She wasn't much to look at, a modified long-range scout vessel, with more patches than original plating, but she was his, and she'd never let him down. Now she gleamed under the hangar lights, her hull freshly reinforced with what appeared to be a new layer of nebula-resistant plating. Technicians swarmed around her, making final adjustments. "Your vessel has been upgraded with our latest nebula shielding technology," Thalan explained as he approached. "The most crucial modification, however, is this." He held out a small device that Anders recognized as a neural interface amplifier. "This will enhance your connection to the ship, allowing you to feel the nebula's energy patterns directly. It's experimental, but it represents your best chance of navigating the vortex." Anders took the device, turning it over in his hands. "And if it fries my brain?" "Then the mission will have failed, and you will at least be spared the complications of success," Thalan replied matter-of-factly. "Have you made your decision, Mr. Cade?" Anders looked from the device to his ship, then back to Thalan. "I'll do it, but I want it in writing that I have the right to choose which princess, if it comes to that. The choice has traditionally been theirs, but I will note your preference in the agreement." Thalan produced a datapad with the contract already prepared. Anders skimmed the terms. The payment was as promised, along with full restoration of his credentials. The Blood Covenant clause was there too, its archaic language stark against the modern legal terminology. With a deep breath, he pressed his thumb to the signature line. "The Astral Dawn's last known coordinates have been uploaded to your navigation system," Thalan said, taking back the datapad. "Our technicians have also included all available data on the nebula's patterns. You launch in 1 hour." "I'll need less than that," Anders replied, already moving toward the Nomad's boarding ramp. The pre-flight checks went smoothly. The ship hummed with new energy responsive under his touch as he activated systems and calibrated instruments. The neural amplifier sat on the console beside him, waiting. "Here goes nothing," Anders muttered to himself as he attached the device to his implant. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. His consciousness expanded, flooding with sensory input as the Nomad systems merged with his neural pathways. He could feel every aspect of the ship, the thrumming engines, the whisper of life, support the readiness of the thrusters. Neural interface active and stable. He reported his voice, sounding distant to his own ears. "Acknowledge, Nomad," came the response from control. "You are cleared for departure. May fortune favor your journey." Anders guided the ship out of the hangar, with a thought marveling at the responsiveness. As the Nomad broke atmosphere and accelerated into space, he felt more alive than he had in years. The journey to the Vortex Nebula's perimeter took just under 6 hours. When it finally came into view, Anders understood why even the most advanced Athetheran ships had failed to penetrate its depths. The nebula sprawled across space like a living storm, its swirling masses of energized particles, creating a constantly shifting maze of deadly forces. Electrical discharges larger than cities arced between pockets of gravitational distortion. The entire formation pulsed with chaotic energy, beautiful and terrifying. Approaching Vortex Nebula perimeter, Anders transmitted back to Helios Outpost. Beginning entry sequence. He activated the nebula shields and felt them integrate with his neural connection. Then, taking a deep breath, he guided the Nomad toward the maelstrom. The moment they crossed the threshold, alarms blared. The ship bucked and shuddered as external forces pulled at it from all directions. Through the neural interface, Anders could feel the nebula's energy patterns, wild and unpredictable, but not entirely random. He closed his eyes, relying on the sensory input from the ship rather than his visual perception. There, a current of calmer energy, threading between two massive electrical discharges. Anders directed the Nomad into it, feeling, rather than seeing the path forward. Minutes stretched into hours as he navigated the labyrinth of deadly forces. Several times the ship nearly succumbed to sudden gravitational shifts or energy surges. But each time Anders anticipated the danger, moments before it struck, adjusting course with inhuman precision. "This is incredible," he whispered to himself, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool cabin temperature. The neural connection was taking its toll, but the exhilaration of true flight, of becoming one with his ship, overshadowed the discomfort. 8 hours into the nebula, the Nomad sensors detected a faint distress signal. Anders followed it deeper into the chaos, threading through increasingly dangerous regions, until finally he saw it. The Astral Dawn, a sleek vessel of unmistakable Athetheran design, nestled in a relatively stable pocket within the nebula's heart. "Astral Dawn, this is Anders Cade, piloting the Nomad. Responding to your distress signal, under authority of High Counselor Thalon." Static crackled for several moments before a response came through. "Nomad, this is Captain Vidian of the Astral Dawn. Your arrival is unexpected. How did you penetrate the nebula?" "Let's just say I have a special relationship with my ship," Anders replied. "Preparing to dock. Please grant access to your starboard airlock." "Access granted," came the terse reply. "Be advised we have critical systems failures and limited life support capacity." The docking procedure was delicate, requiring Anders to maintain precise positioning against the nebula's constant pull. But soon enough, the airlocks engaged with a satisfying clunk, and he was able to board the Athetheran vessel. Captain Vidian met him at the airlock, a stern-faced Athetheran, with the military bearing typical of the royal fleet. His skin held the same blue luminescence as Thalon's, though dimmer, suggesting middle rank within their hierarchy. "A human pilot," Vidian said, not bothering to hide his skepticism. "High Counselor Thalon must have been desperate indeed." "Desperate times," Anders replied with a forced smile. "I understand you have 2 important passengers aboard. The royal princesses are safe, though our situation is deteriorating rapidly. Our engines are offline and life support is failing. We have perhaps 3 days before conditions become unsustainable. Then, we'd better get to work. I need to see the engine room and assess what we're dealing with." Vidian hesitated, then nodded sharply. Follow me. But be warned, the princesses have been informed of your arrival and the terms of your mission. They are processing this information. The Astral Dawn's corridors were elegant, even in crisis, with flowing architectural lines and soft ambient lighting designed to complement Athetheran aesthetics. Emergency systems blinked at intervals, and crew members worked frantically at various stations. They all paused to stare as Anders passed, some with open curiosity, others with thinly veiled disdain. The engine room was a disaster. Scorched panels and exposed circuitry told a story of catastrophic failure, though Anders noted with growing suspicion that the damage patterns seemed oddly specific. This wasn't caused by the Nebula, he said, examining a severed power coupling. These are precise cuts. Sabotage. Vidian's expression darkened. That is a serious accusation. It's not an accusation. It's an observation, Anders replied, continuing his inspection. Someone wanted this ship stranded in the Nebula. Before Vidian could respond, the engine room doors slid open and two figures entered. Anders straightened, immediately recognizing royalty when he saw it. The twin princesses of the Athetheran Empire were identical in their striking beauty, tall and graceful, with the intense blue luminescence of pure royal bloodlines illuminating their features. Yet, even at first glance, Anders could see subtle differences between them. The one on the left carried herself with calculated precision, her gaze analytical as she assessed him. The one on the right had a more fluid stance, her eyes holding a fierce intensity that suggested a warrior's spirit. Princesses, Vidian said, bowing deeply. May I present Anders Cade, the pilot sent to extract us from the Nebula. The human who would invoke the Blood Covenant, said the princess on the left, her voice cool and measured. I didn't invoke anything, Anders clarified. Your representative did. I'm just here to get you out alive. And yet you agreed to the terms, said the right princess, circling him with undisguised curiosity. Interesting. Princess Elixa, Vidian, indicated the left twin, is our chief strategist and diplomatic envoy. Princess Sel, he gestured to the right, serves as commander of the Royal Guard. Anders inclined his head slightly. Your Highnesses. I'd bow, but I'm a bit busy trying to figure out how to save all our lives. To his surprise, Princess Sel laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to startle even her sister. Honesty? How refreshing. Princess Elixa was less amused. Captain Vidian reports you suspect sabotage. I don't suspect it. I'm certain of it, Anders replied, pointing to the damaged systems. These cuts were made with a plasma tool targeting specific power junctions to disable the engines without causing a catastrophic overload. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. Corvallians. Princess Sel, said, her expression hardening. They've been trying to eliminate us for years. If there was a Corvallian agent aboard, they may still be here, Anders pointed out. We need to secure the ship while I work on repairs. Princess Elixa studied him intently. You have engineering expertise as well as piloting skills. When you fly the kinds of ships I've flown, you learn to fix them yourself, or you don't fly for long, Anders replied. He turned back to the damaged systems, already mentally cataloging what would be needed. I can get basic propulsion online, but navigating out of the Nebula with this ship would be impossible. You'll have to abandon it and come aboard the Nomad. Abandon a royal vessel? Vidian looked aghast. That is unthinkable. Less unthinkable than dying, Anders shot back. But first things first, we need to restore power to critical systems and locate any saboteurs still on board. Princess Sel nodded decisively. I'll organize security teams to sweep the ship. Elixa, perhaps you could assist our guest with the technical aspects of Athetheran engineering. Of course, Princess Elixa replied, her analytical gaze never leaving Anders. Though I am curious, Mr. Cade, if you succeed in this rescue, have you considered which of us you would choose under the Blood Covenant? Anders paused in his work, looking up to meet her gaze directly. With all due respect, Your Highness, I'm focused on getting us all out alive, one impossible problem at a time. For the next several hours, Anders worked alongside Princess Elixa to restore basic functionality to the ship's systems. Despite his initial wariness, he found her to be a brilliant engineer with insights into Athetheran technology that proved invaluable. They established a wary professional rapport, communicating in the shorthand of those who share technical expertise. Princess Cell returned periodically with updates on the security sweeps, which had so far yielded nothing concrete. The tension aboard the vessel was palpable, with every crew member now a potential suspect. "We've restored emergency power and stabilized life support," Anders reported, as they regrouped in what had once been an elegant conference room, but now served as their crisis center. "But main propulsion is beyond repair without a proper space dock. We need to prepare for evacuation to the Nomad." "The Nomad cannot possibly accommodate our entire crew," Vidian objected. "It can't," Anders agreed. "But it can take the princesses and a minimal security detail. The rest of the crew will need to enter emergency stasis pods. Once we're clear of the Nebula, we can transmit your coordinates for a proper rescue operation." Princess Elixa frowned. "You propose to leave our people behind." "I propose to save them by not risking everyone on a ship that can't handle the journey," Anders countered. "The Nebula is getting more unstable by the hour. We have a limited window to extract your people safely." "He's right," Princess Cell interjected. "I've reviewed his plan, and it offers the highest probability of survival for all concerned." "There's one other problem," Anders added, lowering his voice. "I've been studying the damage patterns more closely. This wasn't just any sabotage, it was done by someone with intimate knowledge of Athetheran royal vessel specifications. This was an inside job." The implications hung heavy in the air. "Who would have access to such information?" Anders asked. "Only the highest levels of the Athetheran military and royal court," Princess Elixa replied slowly. "Which means—" "We have a traitor at the highest levels." Princess Cell finished, her hand instinctively moving to the weapon at her hip. "Or," Vidian suggested carefully, "someone who gained access to such information through other means." Anders noticed the subtle shift in the captain's demeanor. "I think we need to accelerate our timeline. Princess Elixa, can you begin preparing the crew for emergency stasis?" "Princess Cell, I suggest you personally select the security detail that will accompany us on the Nomad." Both princesses nodded, understanding the unspoken message. As they moved to carry out their tasks, Anders turned to Vidian. "Captain, I need your help in the engine room. There's one more system I need to stabilize before we can leave." Vidian followed Anders back to the engine room, his posture rigid. Once they were alone among the damaged equipment, Anders turned to face him directly. "Want to tell me who you're really working for, Captain?" Vidian's expression remained neutral. "I serve the Athetheran royal family as I always have." "That's interesting," Anders said, pulling out a small component he'd removed from the damaged systems. "Because this sabotage signature matches Corvallian military specifications. And you're the only one who's been acting nervous since I identified it as deliberate." Vidian's hand moved toward his sidearm, but Anders was faster, drawing his own weapon from beneath his jacket. "Don't," Anders warned. "I spent years in border conflicts. I can pull this trigger before you clear your holster." A cold smile spread across Vidian's face. "You misunderstand the situation, human. I am not the saboteur. I've been trying to identify them since we became stranded." Anders kept his weapon trained on the captain. "Convince me." "If I wanted the princesses dead, they would be dead already," Vidian said flatly. "Why sabotage the ship only to keep them alive for days?" It was a fair point. Anders hesitated, and in that moment the lights in the engine room dimmed briefly before returning to normal. "What was that?" Anders asked, not taking his eyes off Vidian. The captain's expression changed to one of genuine alarm. "Someone's accessing the primary power grid. They could be attempting to—" The explosion rocked the ship before he could finish the sentence. Anders was thrown against a bulkhead, momentarily disoriented. When he regained his footing, Vidian was already at a console, frantically assessing the damage. "Emergency bulkheads have sealed off sections 12 through 15, he reported. But life support is failing throughout the ship. Anders rushed to join him, setting aside his suspicions for the moment. They're accelerating their timeline too. We need to evacuate now. The ship's communication system crackled to life. Engine room, this is Princess Cell. We have identified the saboteur chief engineer Rizak. He's barricaded himself in the primary life support chamber. Elixa is with me. We're moving to intercept. Negative, Anders shouted into the comm. Fall back to the Nomad immediately. This ship is about to become a death trap. We cannot allow him to escape, came Princess Cell's determined reply. Anders cursed under his breath. Captain, get to the evacuation point and start prepping the crew for stasis. I'm going after the princesses. Without waiting for a response, Anders sprinted from the engine room, navigating the corridors of the Astral Dawn as emergency alerts blared around him. His neural implant tingled uncomfortably, a warning that the Nebula's energy was beginning to penetrate the ship's failing shields. He found the princesses outside the sealed doors of the life support chamber, Princess Cell, preparing what appeared to be an explosive charge, while Princess Elixa worked on bypassing the security lockout. We need to leave now, Anders insisted, approaching them. The Nebula is breaking through the shields. We have minutes, not hours. Chief Engineer Rizak has rigged the life support systems to fail completely, Princess Elixa explained without looking up from her work. If we don't stop him, everyone on this ship will die, including those in stasis pods. Anders glanced at the sealed door, mind racing through options. Let me in there. I can handle Rizak while you finish evacuating the crew. Princess Cell shook her head. He's a trained Athetheran warrior despite his engineering role. And I'm a desperate human who doesn't want to die in this nebula, Anders countered. Just get that door open. Princess Elixa's fingers danced over the control panel for a few more seconds before the door emitted a soft click. Override complete. But be careful, internal sensors show he's armed with a plasma cutter. Anders drew his weapon. Stay behind me. The life support chamber was vast, filled with humming machinery and pulsing conduits. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows throughout the space, making it difficult to spot movement. Rizak, Anders called out. It's over. The ship is being evacuated. A harsh laugh echoed through the chamber. Nothing is over, human. The Corvellian Collective sends its regards to the royal family. A blast of energy sizzled past Anders's head, scorching the wall behind him. He ducked behind a large processing unit, returning fire in the direction of the attack. You won't leave this nebula alive, Rizak shouted from his hidden position. None of you will. The princesses will die and the Athetheran Empire will crumble without their bloodline. Anders moved cautiously through the chamber, using the machinery as cover. Why sabotage the ship? Why not just assassinate them directly? Because their deaths must appear accidental, came the reply closer now. A tragedy of space travel, not martyrdom. Another energy blast, this one, grazing Anders's shoulder. He hissed in pain, but kept moving, trying to flank Rizak's position. You've failed, Anders called out, hoping to keep the saboteur talking. The princesses will be safely evacuated within minutes. Perhaps, but you won't be among them. The attack came suddenly, Rizak lunging from behind a tangle of conduits, wielding what looked like a modified plasma cutter. Anders fired, but the shot went wide as he dove to avoid the lethal energy beam. They grappled amid the machinery, Rizak's Athetheran strength giving him a significant advantage. The plasma cutter came dangerously close to Anders's face, its heat searing his skin even without contact. Your species is weak, Rizak snarled, pressing his advantage. Unworthy of alliance with the Empire. Anders struggled to hold back the plasma cutter, his arms trembling with the effort. We're full of surprises, he managed through gritted teeth. Just as his strength began to fail, a brilliant energy bolt struck Rizak squarely in the shoulder, spinning him away from Anders. Princess Cell stood in the doorway, weapon raised with Princess Elixa just behind her. Rizak recovered quickly, redirecting his attack toward the princesses. Anders scrambled to his feet, shouting a warning as the saboteur fired a wild blast from a secondary weapon concealed in his uniform. Princess Cell shoved her sister aside, taking the brunt of the energy blast. She staggered but remained standing, returning fire with remarkable accuracy, despite her injury. Anders seized the moment, tackling Rizak from behind and driving him into a control panel with enough force to shatter its casing. The saboteur's weapon clattered to the floor. "Surrender," Anders demanded, pressing his own weapon against Rizak's head. Instead, Rizak smiled through bloodied teeth. "Too late, human. The cascade has begun." A series of alarms blared throughout the chamber as critical systems began shutting down, one after another. "He's initiated a complete systems failure," Princess Elixa called out, rushing to a control station. "I can't stop it from here." Princess Cell staggered toward them, her shoulders smoking from the energy blast. "We need to evacuate now. The ship is lost." Rizak laughed weakly. "As are you. A Corvallian battlecruiser waits beyond the nebula's edge. They detected your arrival, human. They know you found a way through the vortex." Anders's blood ran cold. If the Corvallians had found a way to track the Nomad's entry vector. "We need to move," he said, securing Rizak with restraints from his belt. "Captain Vidian should have the crew in stasis by now." "What about him?" Princess Cell asked, indicating Rizak with her weapon. "Bring him," Anders decided. "He has information we need." They made their way back through the failing ship, the nebula's energies now visibly seeping through the hull, in places creating ghostly auroras in the corridors. The evacuation point was a scene of controlled chaos, with crew members being sealed into emergency stasis pods under Captain Vidian's supervision. "The saboteur?" Vidian asked as they approached. "Contained," Princess Cell replied, shoving Rizak forward. "But the ship is beyond saving." "Most of the crew is already in stasis," Vidian reported. "We can begin transporting the pods to your vessel." Anders shook his head. "No time. The Nomad can tow them once we're clear of the nebula. Right now, we need to get the princesses aboard and prepare for immediate departure." "Corvallian forces are waiting for us," Princess Elixa informed the captain. "We'll need a strategy to evade them." The docking tube between the ships hummed with the nebula's energy as they transferred essential personnel, the princess's Captain Vidian, a security detail of 4, and the prisoner Rizak. As Anders made final preparations for departure, he felt the neural interface tingle with increased intensity, warning of the deteriorating conditions. "Everyone secure?" he asked, sliding into the pilot seat. Princess Elixa took the co-pilot position, while Princess Cell, despite her injury, insisted on guarding the prisoner personally. "We're ready," Elixa confirmed. "The Astral Dawn's stasis pods have been programmed to maintain minimal life support for 72 hours, independent of the main ship's systems." Anders activated the neural amplifier, gasping slightly, as the full, sensory input of the ship and surrounding nebula flooded his consciousness. "This is going to be rough," he warned. "The nebula's patterns have shifted since I came in." The Nomad detached from the Astral Dawn, immediately buffeted by energy currents. Through the neural interface, Anders could feel the push and pull of gravitational forces, the ebb and flow of electrical discharges. He guided the ship with both physical controls and thought commands, navigating the treacherous environment with increasing confidence. "How are you doing this?" Princess Elixa asked, watching in fascination, as Anders threaded the Nomad through a series of energy vortices that should have torn the ship apart. "I'm not just flying the ship," Anders explained, his voice strained with concentration. "I'm feeling the nebula, anticipating its movements before they happen." "A human trait," she observed. "Intuition supplemented by technology." "Something like that." Anders agreed, adjusting course to avoid a massive electrical discharge. "We're making good progress. At this rate, we should reach the perimeter in approximately 4 hours." From the rear of the ship came a sudden commotion. Anders sensed, rather than saw, the disturbance through the neural link, a spike of energy movement where there shouldn't be. "Watch out!" Princess Cell's voice called out, followed by the distinctive sound of an energy weapon discharging. Anders couldn't turn around without disrupting the neural connection, but Princess Elixa was already on her feet, her own weapon drawn. "Stay focused on piloting," she instructed Anders sharply, before moving toward the disturbance. The sounds of struggle continued, grunts, impacts, another weapon discharge, then silence. Status. Anders called out fighting to maintain concentration on navigating the nebula. When no answer came, he risked a quick glance over his shoulder. The sight sent a chill through him. Rizak had somehow broken free, and now held Princess Cell at weapon point. Captain Vidian lay unconscious or worse on the deck, while Princess Elixa stood frozen, her weapon trained on Rizak, but unable to fire without endangering her sister. An interesting development, Rizak said, his voice unnervingly calm. It seems I have leverage after all. Whatever you're planning, it won't work, Anders said, turning back to the controls as the ship shuddered violently. I need to concentrate on flying, or we all die in this nebula. Indeed you do, Rizak agreed. Which is why you'll do exactly as I say. Change course to these coordinates. He recited a string of numbers that made Princess Elixa inhale sharply. That would take us directly into Corvalian territory, she protested. Precisely, Rizak smiled. Where a welcoming committee awaits. Anders' mind raced. The neural interface gave him unprecedented control over the ship, but it also made him vulnerable. If he broke concentration now, the nebula would tear them apart within minutes. Princess Cell, he said carefully, do you trust me? Through the neural link, he sensed her slight nod rather than saw it. Then brace yourself. Without warning, Anders executed a maneuver that should have been impossible, a sudden roll combined with a thruster burst that sent the Nomad spinning along its axis. The nebula's gravitational forces amplified the effect, creating a momentary zero-G pocket within the cabin. Cell, anticipating his intent, used the moment of disorientation to drive her elbow into Rizak's sternum, twisting free of his grasp. Elixa fired in the same instant, her shot striking Rizak's weapon and disabling it. The ship stabilized as Anders regained full control, but the violent maneuver had cost them. Warning indicators flashed across the console as several nebula shielding systems reported damage. Restrain him properly this time, Anders instructed, his voice tight with the strain of maintaining the neural connection. And check on the captain. Princess Cell, nursing what appeared to be a dislocated shoulder, nevertheless moved to secure Rizak this time with reinforced restraints. Princess Elixa knelt beside Captain Vidian, assessing his condition. He's alive, she reported. Stunned, but he'll recover. Good, Anders acknowledged. Because we have another problem. That maneuver damaged our nebula shields. We're leaking atmosphere in 2 sections, and the primary navigation system is offline. Can we still reach the perimeter? Princess Cell asked, returning to the cockpit, after ensuring Rizak was properly contained. Anders grimaced. Yes, but not undetected. The nebula shield damage means we're leaving an energy trail that the Corvalians will be able to track. So they'll be waiting for us when we emerge, Elixa concluded. Most likely, Anders confirmed. We need a plan. For the next 2 hours, Anders focused entirely on navigating the increasingly treacherous path through the nebula, while the princesses worked to repair what damage they could and formulate a strategy for dealing with the Corvalian threat. The stasis pods, Princess Cell suggested during a rare moment when Anders could divert attention from piloting. We can't leave them behind. We won't, Anders assured her. But they complicate our escape. The Nomad can tow them, but not while executing combat maneuvers. What if we don't fight? Princess Elixa proposed thoughtfully. What if we surrender? Anders and Princess Cell both stared at her in disbelief. A feigned surrender, she clarified. The Corvalians want us alive for political advantage. They'll tractor our ship into their hangar bay rather than risk destroying us with the stasis pods. And once we're inside their ship, Anders asked. A cold smile played across Elixa's lips. I've been analyzing the sabotage components Rizak used. They're standard Corvalian military issue, but with a specific modification that suggests they came from the personal arsenal of Commander Lion. Lion. Princess Cell's expression hardened. The same Lion who was father's trusted advisor before disappearing 3 years ago? The very same, Elixa confirmed. It appears he defected to the Corvallians and has been orchestrating this plot from within their hierarchy. How does this help us? Anders pressed, making a minute adjustment to avoid an energy surge. Because, Alexa explained, I can reconfigure these components into a localized electromagnetic pulse device. Once inside their hangar bay, we can disable their systems long enough to escape. Anders considered the plan. It could work, but timing would be critical, and we'd need a diversion to keep their attention while you set up the pulse. I can provide a diversion, Princess Cell offered, her expression grim with determination. The conversation was interrupted as the ship bucked violently, systems blaring warnings as a massive gravitational wave struck them. Hold on, Anders shouted fully, immersing in the neural connection to regain control. For several harrowing minutes, he fought against the Nebula's fury, feeling each energy pattern through the interface and countering it with precise adjustments. The strain was enormous. Sweat poured down his face, and a throbbing pain built at the base of his skull, where the neural amplifier connected. We're approaching the perimeter, he finally announced, his voice rough with exhaustion. Sensors are detecting 3 Corvallian vessels in standard ambush formation. They're expecting us, Princess Cell observed grimly. Then let's not disappoint them, Princess Alexa replied, holding up the makeshift EMP device she'd been assembling. Are we committed to this plan? Anders nodded, fighting through the neural interface's growing discomfort. It's our best shot, but be ready to improvise if things go sideways. As the Nomad emerged from the Vortex Nebula, trailing the tethered stasis pods containing the Astral Dawn's crew, the Corvallian vessels immediately moved to intercept. Their sleek, predatory forms contrasted sharply with the Athetheran aesthetic. All hard angles and visible weapon systems, where the Athetherans preferred flowing lines and concealed armaments. Attention, unidentified vessel, came the transmission in heavily accented common tongue. You are in restricted space. Power down and prepare to be boarded. Anders exchanged glances with the princesses before responding. This is the Independent Transport Nomad. We are experiencing critical systems failures and request immediate assistance. We have survivors from the Athetheran royal vessel, Astral Dawn. A long pause followed before the reply came. Confirmed, Nomad. Power down your engines and prepare for tractor beam. Any resistance will result in immediate destruction. Understood, Anders replied, making a show of powering down non-essential systems while keeping the neural interface active. Through it, he maintained a subtle readiness in the ship's core functions that wouldn't register on standard scans. The largest Corvallian vessel moved into position, its tractor beam locking onto the Nomad and gradually drawing it toward an open hangar bay. The stasis pods trailed behind, like a string of metallic pearls. Remember, Anders said quietly, as they were pulled inexorably closer. Once we're inside, we'll have maybe 2 minutes before they realize something's wrong. Alexa, you'll need to activate the pulse the moment we're fully in the hangar. Cell, you're on diversion duty. I'll keep the ship ready for immediate launch. And Rizak, Princess Cell asked. Anders' expression hardened. Leave him secured. If this works, he faces Athetheran justice. If it doesn't, he didn't need to finish the thought. The hangar bay engulfed them, artificial gravity and atmosphere establishing around the Nomad as massive doors sealed behind them. Through the viewports, they could see Corvallian soldiers assembling in formation, weapons at the ready. Now, Anders whispered. Princess Alexa activated the makeshift device. A barely perceptible pulse emanated from it, causing lights throughout the hangar to flicker momentarily before stabilizing. It worked, she confirmed. Their internal security systems and weapons are offline for approximately 90 seconds. Princess Cell was already moving, donning an atmosphere suit, as she prepared to exit the ship. Be careful, Anders warned her. Even without weapons, they outnumber us significantly. She gave him a fierce grin. Numbers aren't everything. The moment she cycled through the airlock, chaos erupted in the hangar. Even unarmed Princess Cell was a formidable opponent, trained in Athetheran combat arts that made her movements almost too fast to follow. She carved a path through the confused Corvallian soldiers, creating a deliberate spectacle that drew all attention away from the Nomad. Engines ready. Anders reported feeling the ship's systems respond to his neural commands. Alexa, I need you on the stasis pod controls. We'll have one chance to retrieve them during launch. She nodded, taking position at the auxiliary console. What about Cell? She knows the plan, Anders replied, though concern edged his voice. 30 seconds until their systems recover. Outside, Princess Cell had fought her way to a control panel near the hangar doors, her movements becoming more desperate as Corvallian reinforcements poured in. With a final acrobatic leap, she reached the panel and began inputting commands. She's opening the emergency bulkheads, Alexa realized, creating an escape route. The hangar bay doors began to part, revealing the starfield beyond. Warning klaxons blared as atmospheric containment fields struggled to compensate for the unexpected breach. That's our cue, Anders declared, engaging the Nomad's engines with a thought. The ship surged forward, breaking free of the weakened tractor beam. Princess Cell abandoned the control panel and sprinted back toward the Nomad as it hovered momentarily. Boarding ramp extended. 15 seconds until their weapons come back online. Alexa warned, fingers dancing over the stasis pod retrieval controls. Anders felt rather than saw Princess Cell make it aboard the ship's sensors, registering her presence through his neural connection. The moment the airlock sealed, he gunned the engines shooting out of the hangar bay, just as energy weapons began to power up throughout the Corvallian vessel. Stasis pod secure, Alexa reported. All life signs stable. The Nomad accelerated away from the Corvallian ships, which were still recovering from the electronic disruption. But their reprieve wouldn't last long. They're pursuing, Princess Cell announced, returning to the cockpit, still breathing hard from her exertion. All 3 vessels. I see them, Anders acknowledged, feeling the neural interface burn with increased input as he pushed the Nomad to its limits. We can't outrun them conventionally. What about unconventionally? Princess Alexa suggested, studying the tactical display. The Nebula's perimeter. Anders understood immediately. It's risky. The pods might not survive the gravitational stresses. Neither will they survive Corvallian captivity, Princess Cell pointed out grimly. With a nod, Anders altered course, heading back toward the Vortex Nebula. The Corvallian vessels followed, gaining ground rapidly. Energy weapons charging, Alexa reported. They'll be in range in 30 seconds. They won't fire directly, Anders reasoned. Not with you 2 aboard. They want captives, not corpses. They might target our engines, Cell suggested. Disable rather than destroy. Anders smiled grimly. Then I'll have to make sure they miss. The neural interface allowed him to feel the approaching weapons lock before the Nomad's sensors detected it. With a thought, he sent the ship into a series of evasive maneuvers that would have been impossible through conventional controls. The first Corvallian energy beams sliced through empty space where the Nomad had been moments before. Anders continued his unpredictable flight pattern, simultaneously guiding the ship ever closer to the Nebula's perimeter. They're launching boarding craft, Alexa warned. Small, fast interceptors. Let them come, Anders replied, a plan forming in his mind. In fact, I'm counting on it. As the Nebula loomed before them, Anders made a subtle course adjustment, aiming not for the relative safety of the path he'd discovered earlier, but for one of the most volatile regions along the perimeter. Anders, Princess Cell questioned, noticing the change. Trust me. He set his focus absolute as the neural interface fed him continuous data on both the pursuing vessels and the Nebula's energy patterns. The Corvallian boarding craft closed rapidly, their smaller mass giving them a significant speed advantage. Just as they came within grappling range, Anders executed his gambit. With a precisely timed thruster burst, the Nomad shot forward and then up, skimming the very edge of the Nebula. The pursuing craft, committed to their intercept course, couldn't adjust in time. They plunged directly into the volatile energy field. The result was spectacular and terrible. The small crafts were instantly torn apart by conflicting gravitational forces, their destruction creating a cascading disruption that rippled outward. The larger Corvallian vessels, following too closely, were caught in the expanding shockwave. "Hold on!" Anders shouted as the disruption reached them. The Nomad bucked violently as energy surges washed over its hull. Through the neural interface, Anders felt every system strain to its limits. Pain lanced through his skull as the neural amplifier struggled to process the overwhelming input. For several excruciating moments, it seemed certain they would be destroyed, along with their pursuers. Then, with one final surge of will, Anders guided the ship clear of the disruption zone and into open space. "Status," he gasped, fighting to maintain consciousness as blood trickled from his nose. "Corvalian vessels have sustained critical damage," Princess Elixa reported, her voice tinged with awe. "They're retreating." "And the stasis pods?" Anders pressed. Princess Cell checked the monitors. "All intact, life signs stable." Anders allowed himself a moment of relief before reality reasserted itself. "We need to contact Helios Outpost. Arrange rendezvous for proper rescue vessels." The words had barely left his mouth when the neural interface overloaded, sending a surge of feedback through his implant. The pain was immediate and overwhelming, driving him into unconsciousness, even as warnings blared throughout the ship. He woke to the steady beep of medical equipment and the soft ambient lighting of what was unmistakably an Athetheran medical facility. Princess Elixa sat nearby, studying a datapad with intense concentration. "How long?" Anders croaked, his throat dry. She looked up, setting aside the datapad. 3 days. The neural amplifier caused significant strain on your central nervous system. The doctors weren't certain you would recover fully." Anders attempted to sit up, wincing at the protest from his body. "But I have—" "So it appears," she replied with a small smile. "Just in time for the High Council's deliberation." Memory flooded back the mission, the Nebula, the Blood Covenant. "Ah," he said simply, "that." "Indeed." Princess Elixa rose gracefully. "The Council convenes in 2 hours to formally recognize your service to the Empire and to address the matter of the Covenant." Anders met her gaze directly. "And how do you feel about that, Your Highness?" Something unreadable flickered in her eyes. "I believe in honoring traditions, but I also believe in progress." Before he could respond, the door to his chamber slid open, admitting Princess Cell. She moved with the same fluid grace as before, though. Anders noticed she favored her right side slightly, a lingering effect of the injury sustained during Rizak's attack. "The hero awakes," she greeted him with a genuine smile. "Good timing. Father is eager to meet the human who saved his daughters and exposed a Corvalian spy network within our highest ranks." "Rizak is talking?" Anders asked. "Extensively," Princess Cell confirmed with grim satisfaction. "It seems Lion promised him a significant position within the Corvalian hierarchy in exchange for delivering us. Thanks to his information, we've identified 3 other agents embedded within the royal court." Anders nodded, processing this information. "And Captain Vidian?" "Exonerated completely," Princess Elixa supplied. "He's been commended for his service and assigned to oversee security reforms." "The crew of the Astral Dawn," Anders pressed. "All recovered safely," Princess Cell assured him. "The stasis pods performed admirably despite the gravitational stresses they endured." Anders allowed himself to relax slightly. "Good. That's good." An awkward silence fell, the unaddressed matter of the Blood Covenant hanging between them. "I should prepare for the council session," Princess Elixa said, finally moving toward the door. She paused beside her sister, the two exchanging a look that seemed to communicate volumes without words. After she departed, Princess Cell moved closer to Anders' bedside. "The medical staff left clothing for you," she indicated a neatly folded stack on a nearby table. Traditional Athetheran formal attire, appropriate for a council appearance. "I'm not sure I'll do it justice," Anders remarked, eyeing the elaborate garments. Princess Cell laughed, that same genuine sound he'd heard aboard the Astral Dawn. "Perhaps not, but it sends a message you are respected enough to be clothed as one of us." Anders studied her for a moment. "And am I one of you?" Her expression sobered. "You saved my life, my sister's life, the lives of our crew. By a Thetheran reckoning, that creates a bond that transcends species. But not the blood covenant, Anders observed. Princess Sel's gaze was direct and unflinching. The covenant is complex, more so than High Counselor Thalon likely explained. How so? It binds not just you to one of us, but us to you, she said carefully. It was designed millennia ago when our species first encountered others capable of space travel. A way to ensure alliances through bloodlines. Seems archaic now, Anders commented. Many of our traditions are, she acknowledged. Yet they have preserved our society through countless generations. A pause. But traditions can be reinterpreted for modern times. Before Anders could question this cryptic statement, she stepped back. Rest now. Prepare yourself for the council. Whatever happens there, know that you have earned the respect of the Thetheran royal family. With that, she departed, leaving Anders alone with his thoughts. 2 hours later, he stood before the High Council of the Thetheran Empire, clad in the formal attire provided. The garments were surprisingly comfortable, despite their elaborate appearance fitting him perfectly, a testament to Thetheran attention to detail. The council chamber was vast and magnificent, its architecture embodying the flowing aesthetic he'd observed on the Astral Dawn, but on a far grander scale. Illuminated panels cast soft ambient light that complemented the natural bioluminescence of the assembled Thetheran dignitaries. High Counselor Thalon conducted the proceedings, his formal robes even more elaborate than when Anders had first met him in that dingy border outpost bar. Anders Cade. Thalon's voice resonated through the chamber. You stand before the High Council having fulfilled the mission entrusted to you. The royal princesses have been returned safely to the Empire. A Corvallian plot has been exposed, and your actions have saved numerous Thetheran lives. Anders inclined his head in acknowledgement, as he'd been instructed was appropriate. In recognition of these services, Thalon continued, the Council hereby restores your pilot's credentials to full standing, with additional commendation for extraordinary skill. Furthermore, you are granted citizenship within the Empire, with all rights and privileges therein. A murmur of approval rippled through the assembled dignitaries. Finally, Thalon's tone shifted subtly. We come to the matter of the blood covenant. The chamber fell silent. By ancient law, having rendered this service to the royal family, you are bound to wed one of the twin princesses, thereby joining your bloodline to the royal house and cementing an alliance between our peoples. Anders took a deep breath, stepping forward. With respect, High Counselor, I wish to address the council regarding this matter. Surprise flickered across Thalon's features, but he nodded permission. The blood covenant comes from a time when alliances between species were rare and fragile. Anders began choosing his words carefully. It served to bind individuals, and through them, civilizations, in ways that transcended politics. He paused, looking around the chamber to meet the eyes of various council members before continuing. I do not seek to reject this tradition, but I do ask the council to consider its true purpose. Is it meant to force individuals into unwanted unions, or is it meant to create genuine bonds of loyalty and cooperation? Another murmur, this one less approving, spread through the council. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Cade? Thalon asked, his tone carefully neutral. I propose that the spirit of the covenant be honored, rather than its literal interpretation, Anders replied. That instead of a forced marriage based on ancient obligation, we forge a new kind of alliance, one based on mutual respect and free choice. Before Thalon could respond, Princess Elixa rose from her seat among the royal contingent. The human speaks wisdom, she declared, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Our traditions endure because they adapt. The blood covenant was never intended as punishment or constraint, but as recognition of extraordinary service and connection. Princess Sel stood as well, joining her sister. I suggest a reinterpretation of the covenant for modern times. Let it symbolize alliance without requiring marriage against anyone's will, including ours. This caused a stir among the council members, some nodding in agreement, while others frowned in disapproval. An elderly Athetheran with particularly intense bioluminescence spoke up. The royal twins speak with one voice on this matter, most unusual. We do, Princess Elixa confirmed. Having faced death alongside Anders Cade, we have come to respect him not as a potential consort, but as an ally of unique value to the Empire. His human intuition combined with our technology allowed him to navigate the Vortex Nebula, a feat our best pilots could not achieve, Princess Cell added. This suggests possibilities for collaboration far more valuable than a symbolic marriage. High Counselor Thalon stroked his chin thoughtfully. What specific alternative do you propose? Princess Elixa stepped forward. I propose a research alliance. Anders Cade's neural interface capabilities combined with Athetheran technology could revolutionize space travel through previously impassable regions. And I, Princess Cell interjected, propose a security alliance. His combat tactics and piloting skills would be invaluable in training our forces to counter Corvellian aggression. Anders looked between the twins' realization dawning. They had planned this, giving all of them a way out that preserved honor while respecting autonomy. Thalon turned to Anders. And you, Mr. Cade, do you find these alternatives acceptable? Anders nodded slowly. More than acceptable, High Counselor. They honor the spirit of alliance while allowing all parties to choose their path forward. The council deliberated for several hours, during which Anders was asked to wait in an antechamber. The twins joined him briefly, their presence a silent reassurance that whatever the outcome they stood united in this matter. Finally, he was summoned back before the council. High Counselor Thalon's expression gave nothing away as Anders took his position in the center of the chamber. The High Council has reached a decision, Thalon announced formally, regarding the matter of the blood covenant between Anders Cade and the royal house of Athetheran. The chamber fell silent as all awaited the pronouncement. The council recognizes that traditions must serve the greater good, not constrain it, Thalon continued. Therefore, we accept the proposed reinterpretation of the covenant for this unique circumstance. Relief washed over Anders, though he maintained a composed exterior. Anders Cade. Thalon addressed him directly. You are hereby released from the marriage obligation of the blood covenant. In its place, you may choose to form an alliance with either royal princess, or both in a capacity that serves your mutual interests and the interests of our respective species. Anders bowed deeply, genuine gratitude in the gesture. I am honored by the council's wisdom and flexibility. Do you now make your choice? Thalon inquired. Anders turned to face the royal twins, who had again risen from their seats. He studied them both for a long moment before responding. If it pleases the council, I would propose a dual alliance, he said carefully. With Princess Elixa, I would pursue the research path exploring the integration of human intuition and Athetheran technology. And with Princess Cell, I would contribute to security initiatives, sharing tactical knowledge gained from my experiences. A smile, barely perceptible but definitely present, crossed Thalon's face. An elegant solution. The council approves provided the princess's consent. I consent, Princess Elixa said immediately. As do I, Princess Cell affirmed. And with that, the matter was settled. The formal proceedings concluded shortly thereafter, leaving Anders with a future far different than he had anticipated when he first accepted Thalon's mission in that border outpost bar. Later, in a private garden within the royal complex, Anders found himself joined by both princesses. The formality of the council chamber had fallen away, replaced by a more relaxed demeanor from all parties. You played that perfectly, Princess Cell commented, a hint of admiration in her voice. One might almost think you understood Athetheran politics. Anders laughed. I understood enough to know that tradition matters to your people, but so does progress. The trick was finding a path that honored both. A human trait, Princess Elixa observed. Adaptability. It serves your species well. Just as precision and patience serve yours, Anders replied. Perhaps that's why this alliance has potential complementary strengths. Ah, speaking of alliance. Princess Cell said, When do you wish to begin our security collaboration? The Corvallians may be temporarily weakened by the exposure of their agents, but they will regroup. And our research partnership, Princess Elixa added. The neural interface technology you used in the Nebula is just the beginning of what might be possible. Anders looked between them, sensing the genuine enthusiasm behind their proposals. These weren't just diplomatic niceties or obligations, they were opportunities to create something meaningful. I'm ready whenever you are, he told them. Though I might need a few more days to fully recover from the neural interface overload. Of course, Princess Elixa nodded. Medical concerns take precedence. I've already begun reviewing the data from your neural amplifier. The patterns you perceived within the nebula, they're fascinating. And I've commissioned a new vessel, Princess Cell announced. Based on your Nomad but incorporating Athetheran defensive systems. A hybrid craft like our new alliance. Anders smiled, feeling something he hadn't experienced in years, genuine optimism. I think this is the beginning of a productive partnership. Indeed, Princess Elixa agreed. And perhaps more than that, a new chapter in relations between our peoples. Without the awkwardness of a political marriage, Princess Cell added with a grin. Though I'm curious, Anders said, looking between them. If the Council had insisted on upholding the traditional interpretation of the Covenant, which of you would have? The twins exchanged that same communicative glance he'd noticed before. We would have devised an alternative, Princess Elixa said diplomatically. Or drawn straws, Princess Cell suggested, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Anders laughed, and after a moment the princesses joined him. 3 individuals from different worlds united not by ancient obligation, but by choice and mutual respect. As twilight descended over the Athetheran capital, they discussed the future, not just their individual projects, but the broader implications of their alliance. The human pilot who had navigated the impossible nebula had also found a way through the equally treacherous waters of interspecies politics, charting a course that respected tradition while embracing change. It wasn't the ending Anders had expected when he first accepted this mission. It was something far better, a beginning.